Hi, everyone. Let me say again, hi, everyone. My name is Ashon Crawley. Today is April 10th, 2020, and it's the official publication date for my newest book that's titled The Lonely Letters, Plaid. Um, really excited that it has been released. Also, really quite nervous. It's a deeply personal project, a collection. It's an epistolary, so it's a collection of letters that are sent from a person named A to a person named Moth. It's about love, it's about heartbreak, it's about loneliness, it's about desire, it's about religiosity, it's about care. Um, and it took me, I started writing in 2010, and they weren't supposed to be like actually a project. It was just the first three letters that are not in the project, but there were three letters that I had written that I wanted to send to someone in particular, and I could not. And I kept feeling like I had something to say, and so I began to write emails to myself. And so the project began as not a project at all. The project began as a real desire to establish connection, or to maintain connection between myself and someone else. And it sort of developed over time. The more that I wrote, the more that I wrote, the more I felt I had something to say, and then I put it down for a while, blah, blah, blah. All that to say that 10 years later, from 2010 to 2020, we go from some letters that were supposed to be sent but weren't, to this project that includes an art practice. So the cover of the book is also a painting that I created. And if you get the book, I hope you do. Um, I explain what the painting process is and why I do that. What I'm trying to do, more than anything else, is to talk about the form that sociality can take that transforms us. Um, that the loneliness that so it's a semi-fictional text as well. It's based on me and my own experiences. But I had to fictionalize some things to protect other people, and because I believe in, privacy, all that kind of stuff. So the emotions that are felt are deeply real, but the kinds of things that I talk about with specificity, some of those things have been changed for specific people. But the desire of the project is really to think about desire, to think about how we inhabit the world, and to really honor sort of Black queer practices of relationality, joy, pleasure, and also to think about what the Black Pentecostal space that produced me, what it gifted me. Um, it's gifted me a lot. It's gifted me a way to think about my inhabitation in the world, taught me about love, taught me about joy, um, taught me about having joy in sorrow. And I think that's deeply important. We are experiencing social distancing as a fact of um, the virus COVID-19 currently. And so a lot of us are feeling not only alone, because a person like me, I live alone and I am single. And so I've been alone in my house mostly, or going to a trail to walk, but doing that by myself as well. And so this is week 5 of not touching anyone. I've only had contact with one friend where we've hugged in the last 5 weeks. So it feels very unnatural, this kind of world. And I am a touch person. And so I miss my people, I miss my family, I really miss my friends. And so it's sort of serendipitous, or maybe not serendipitous, but it is a coincidence, happenstance, that the book is released during this moment where people are feeling aloneness, but also isolation, physically, emotionally, affectively, from folks, where people are feeling deep lonely practices of, or deep feelings of loneliness. And the project is primarily trying to think about loneliness that doesn't emerge from being bereft or feeling like one lacks in things, but feeling lonely because one feels as if they have so much to give. If they feel like they are at a point of overflowing and they want to pour into another in ways that they have been poured into. And so it's a kind of aloneness that wants more than anything else to share. A loneliness that says, I have all this abundance in terms of joy and delight and compassion and love, and I want to share in that with other folks. And so, what I want to do today, because it's the official release date, I just want to read two of the letters from the project, and I'll link to the Duke University press page for the project in the comments so that you might, if you are interested, purchase the book. It's 50% off until May 1st or April 30th or whatever, until the end of the month, if you use the code SPRING50, but that's all on the website too. So I will read two of the letters, and I hope you enjoy. The first one is one that I enjoy a lot, and the second one is my favorite letter, because it is the encapsulation of how I always feel when I feel desire for another. So the first one is B4, which is in the breath chapter, on page 24. Dear Moth, I hear you. I do. I understand that you think I'm not being necessarily fair to mystics, but that's not the case at all. Thanks for sending me the various readings, the Hollywood, the McGinn, that helped me contextualize a bit more. You're right, and I agree. There is something radical, even though I think the ones I'm discussing do have limitations. And not just because of the times in which they lived. Limitations mean to me that we have to work with and on and against each other in the service of a liberation project, that we have to be engaged in the thicket of the social world, not retreat from it, if we are to realize freedom. Iron sharpens iron and all that. I've been thinking about what Rebecca Chop says. Quote, from codes of purity to acts of Jesus' healing, the implicit theological assumption has equated perfect bodies with wholeness of the spirit. And as if to ensure the quest for purity, physical afflictions become elevated to virtuous suffering when and only when they can be spoken of as trials of obedience. End quote. I guess I'm thinking about this again because I'm also thinking about Teresa and Julian and how their experiences of physical pain and torture and how they constitute one way to think about mystical experience. Julian opens her discussion about it like this, quote, I asked for three graces of God's gift. The first was vivid perception of Christ's passion. The second was bodily sickness, and the third was for God to give me 3 wounds, end quote. What I'm thinking about is the way perfect or perhaps normative bodies have to be the ground from which the desire for physical affliction, bodily sickness, and wounding to occur. One would have to consider oneself as already whole, as in need of something sensate to occur that is non-normative, that is queer, that is different than what so-called or so-thought normal people experience. To desire affliction in the body is an individuated thing. It does not connect to all that is, but connects oneself to a greater sense of self. It seems to be about the movement of and desire for radical, rooted individualism that is enclosed. That physical pain, that bodily sickness, that wounding would come to do the work of making oneself complete and perfectible as an enclosed subject. Does that make sense? And I don't know, that just bothers me because I used to frequent A for A, and I keep going on Grindr and Jacked and other shit like that, and keep reading people say they want no fats, no femmes. What they're asserting is that there is a body that is considered to be normal, and for those that are considered to be abject, they occupy a kind of categorical distinction. And for a long time, I've been thinking about how no fats, no femmes rehearses a kind of theological, philosophical concept of the flesh, a kind of denouncing of its capacity to hold, its capacity to be exorbitant. It's like we're supposed to literally hold our breath in order to be more perfectible, to inhale and hold so that we may appear to be thinner, inhale and hold so as not to be considered out of control. And I think about walking down the street or up the stairs or hills and how that makes me entirely out of breath. How walking, how movement itself can bespeak something of breathing. With no fats, no films, the individual is considered to have failed to conform to accepted and acceptable religious doctrine and secular rhetoric. Not only are you queer and thus a kind of repository for sinfulness, but also the appetite is considered to be out of control too. It seems to me to be the case that, similar to Black Christian rhetoric and theologies, it appears that the flesh is the nadir in Black queer masculine desiring culture, and that particularly, but not only for cisgender dudes. Because the flesh is the site, the ground zero upon which religious meaning is made and transforms one into a body that has value. I'm thinking of Spillers here. It seems that Black queer masculine desiring people take up the flesh as a site for rupturing normativities and for creating of its own meaning. They reproduce the theological, philosophical as a kind of category. It is not removed from Christianized concepts, but is a deep entrenchment of the idea. No fats, no femmes seems to be a rhetorical admission to and underscoring of the ways gender performance as well as physical musculature of the body are ripe with social and sacred meaning. Similar to Black queerness and Black Christian imagination, fat and femme bodies intimate one that is out of control and given to excess. It is a different rendering of a sinful body, yet equally engaged in discourse of pleasure, ecstasy, and behaviors of the non-normative. Whereas in normative theologies of the body and sexuality, and certainly within institutional historical Black church culture, there is much focus on the sexual appetites of the congregants, but in the purported redress place the Black church's regulatory control of the libidinal drive and replace it with a new paradigm toward which Black queer folks must aspire in order to be holy and acceptable. The rational and controlled physical body that has six-pack abs and performs masculinity. All this to say, I wonder about mortification of the flesh as a means for attempting an ideal of the religious, the spiritual, the set apart, mortification in order to have an experience of God. Because what about those of us that are mortified, abject to a normative understanding of the flesh? What of us that breathe heavy when we walk down the street? What of those of us that experience life itself as a kind of tripartite that Julian describes? What of those of us, in other words, that do not have to become or be initiated into such an experience of bodily pain, but experience it as a grounding of being? This is not to say I want to caution that Blackness or queerness is itself a painful experience. It's just to mark that the relation Blackness and queerness have to the normative is through the already distant abjection that folks like Julian desired. What if we dispensed with, discarded altogether, the normative ideal? What then would be an experience of the mystical? I guess I'm wondering out loud. A. And the second letter I want to read is in the Noise chapter 9, my favorite letter, on page 132, sorry. Dear Moth, there are worlds, and the fact of our experiencing them is because we are impossibly vulnerable, open, as a way of life. The central nervous system isn't enclosed in the borders of the so-called body, but it's out there in worlds. That which is central is a kind of ecstatic force, ecstatic being, existence beside or otherwise than the self. Such that the idea of an outside and inside needs to be thought against, maybe entangled, maybe a system. That's why I talk about flesh instead of body, because for me at least, flesh names this kind of openness, this necessary vulnerability. It's been a while since I've heard from you. You sent that text when you returned home that you shouldn't have come over, that you're sorry that you cried, that you love me, but you can't. And all this talk mostly about God. And it's taken me some time to think about what you wrote to me about God. I had to think about it, had to think about what you think God is. So here. What quantum physics is discovering is a redefinition of space-time as not linear nor separable. If this is the case and God is, as you say, an unfolding, then this God would be the unfolding of all that is and is not detectual, able to be detected. by sensual capacities. This would mean that there is something behind or that withdraws from even this quantum understanding of space-time, some otherwise sort of relation, some sort of unity and convergence that would undo even the concepts of unity, convergence, together, sociality, unfolding, enfolding, undoing, doing, action, reaction. Does this make sense? And that would then mean love too, right? Because don't we think of love as the unfolding of possibility in space time? Or, following quantum mechanics, in space time, love as approaching a kind of sociality of experience? But then maybe also love would be that which necessarily withdraws through approach, the very possibility of possibility. Because what does it mean for something or nothing to be of, from or marking relation to, possibility if it recedes from sense experience? Love as the sense experience beyond sensuality, beyond or withdrawing from or below or sharing some other kind of relation to experience. It's like when Fred Moten says to Wu Sang in Conversation, the first time, quote, the first time I heard the sound of your voice, it filled me with a sense of the future perfect, the friendship I will have had. Getting to know you, sounding without thinking, walking, just walking and heart beating, out of sync but in time, end quote. To be filled with a sense, and for that sense to be of the future perfect, means that the voice was a point of departure for excess. It exceeded the very possibility of delimitation, was its own enactment of otherwise, a rip in space-time linearity. And that's how it was with you, too. We exist in and as excess, as that which cannot be contained or engulfed or enclosed by anything, negation and exclusion included. It's as if we are the flesh of what quantum mechanics is discovering. And flesh vibrates. Flesh, like matter in general, is antithetical to settlement, to settler logics, to being settled. And I won't settle. And I will continue to pursue what at time feels at most like a hunch or a vague sense of possibility, or perhaps even like a pulling toward, something sort of like a dream trying to be pieced together after having awoken abruptly and having felt deeply but losing such feeling second by second, though you intuit, that though you have not attained, pressing in such a direction will fulfill a promise to come. And I will continue precisely because my now moment is dictated by some moment to come sensed as verve and visitation from outside the possibility of space-time. And I won't settle because it happened, because it happens, because it is happening, because it will happen. What I'm trying to say imprecisely is this. I think I love you. I watch an oversimplification of her beauty, as you know, a lot. And I get why she sent the text she did, why it was a question that was also a statement, how it was tentative but also sure. I think I love you. I finally understand because you, Moth, make me feel what I've just been afraid to say, but I know to be true. I have never felt this way about anyone in my life before. And that sounds like a platitude. But what I mean is this. You are, and my feeling for you is black noise, is static. Is sort of the background against which everything I do occurs. I don't consciously think about you all of the time, no. But I feel you when I sleep, when I wake, when I cook, when I sing, as I breathe, as I breathe, as I breathe, it's you. A sort of quiet omnipresence, a soft enclosement. You are the noise, almost chant-like. I hear sort of far off in the deep recesses and furthest reaches of my flesh. And yet you feel more than near, closer than anything I've ever known. I do not think about you as much as I think you. It's as if you are bound to each thought, whatever that thought might be, I think. It's as if you are the ground of all that is for me. I do not mean this in a way pathological or that I cannot exist without you, that I have some sort of weird codependence that is more about ego and narcissism than about your well-being or mine. I mean that I desire you, and I feel we are one. It's like what I said to you in the text message not soon after meeting you. It's as if in and with you I'd found the voice in my head to which I was constantly searching, the voice in my head to which I was always replying. as if meeting you confirmed that we already were, that we already was, as if meeting you were the promise and the fulfillment of a promise, a breakdown of simultaneity through a space time rip or tear or break. I understand David and Jonathan being knit together. Quote, unlike weaving, knitting does not require a loom or other large equipment, making it a valuable technique for nomadic and non-agrarian peoples, end quote. They were knit together and were movers, nomadic. Nomads are wanderers, and I'm thinking about David's song, talking about walking through the valley of the shadow of death but not fearing, wandering in death's shadow but still feeling assured. And though this 23rd is about the Lord, I wonder if it's also about what had been backgrounded, David being knotted up and tangled with Jonathan. And what I mean is this, I think I love you, no question mark. And what I mean is this, I have not stopped telling everyone about you, the joy you have brought and continue to bring me. And what I mean is this, there is not only you in the world, but you are my paraclete, and I yours. And what I mean is this, I want a consensuality with you, a continued consent to be together, a way of life that will always have friendship as the first and always plural operation. And what I mean is this, entanglement might be the best way to approach what I feel, that once joined together, we are a system. We maintain our uniqueness regardless of the nearness or farness, regardless of space-time separation. We are indivisible. We renounce the individual for the social for and with and in each other. And what I mean is this, it's as if dream worlds were hallucinating otherwise universes as possible, and my and your dream worlds outpoured toward each other, enfolded into and collapsed within each other. And what I mean is this, it's kind of beautiful and mostly scary, because I don't know what this means and haven't since I first met you, and I'm unsure what to do. I do not want to control you. Your consent is more necessary than my desire. And what I mean is this, I don't want you to go to seminary if it means you will not and cannot be with me. I want to support you, but why the priesthood when they require celibacy? My stomach churns at the thought of us not being together. I literally get sick at the thought. Your t-shirt that you left here when you were last here, I have not washed it because the smell of sweat and polo cologne and you and you and you linger on in it. Don't do this, please. I hate to even ask such a thing. Don't not go for me, but please don't go. I know Saint Sabina was formative for you, that you chose that space of care and were so compelled, you were even able to get your parents to join too. I know you want to continue in the tradition of the folks there, that you too think the University of St. Mary of the Lake is the place to which you are called to study for a master's degree and all, but please, do you think this will make you happy? Can you do the justice work and preaching work in another tradition? I need you to. I'm not just speaking metaphorically. I want to be touched by and to touch you continually. I'm not talking about some abstract kind of affection, but a real feeling of and with and in you, and reciprocally. Love is a material thing. It breaks open imagination and makes possible other ways of conceiving what we can think and do and be. Until the space-time when where I no longer feel you, which will never be. A. Thank you. Those were two of the letters, and I hope you get the project. I hope you read it, and I hope it resonates with you. I hope you feel it. And I hope you have a great day. Thank you.